dizzy. Can't see him. Could be anywhere. Dead end. Shit. Oh. Oh no. Oh, please God, no.
My lord, you are safe, thank goodness.
What do you mean? What the hell is going on here?
My lord, it's...
If you do not talk, I shall give you life.
It's the maximum security section, sir. There's been a breakout.
Maximum security, but that's where
Greg Groomer Onision is housed.
Oh God.
My lord, what do we do?
Round up a security squad to sweep the grounds, and run forensics on his cell. Though I think I already know where he is going.
Wait, you do?
Oh yes. We are second on his list, so we are safe, for now. His first target will be Mother Moocake, a strange, angry man whose help we called on to sentence Greg Groomer Onision 2 years ago. Since then, he also helped to block his appeal 1 year ago with more evidence, and has nearly finished compiling a final list of evidence of Greg Groomer Onision's crimes. That man is the reason Greg Groomer Onision was sentenced. Moocake will be his first target.
Well, what should we do about him?
Get me on the line to him immediately. We may not have units to him in time. I just hope to all stock image that he picks up.
Right. Let's finish this. I would like to start today's video with a question. What, in the name of sanity, actually is Onision? I'm serious, what the fuck is he at this point? He's had such a long and fucked up and demented YouTube career, and he has done and said so many awful things during that time that it's genuinely difficult to comprehend just exactly what he is at this point. He's created such a deep and truly screwed up rabbit hole that even the idea of approaching it is daunting, because even to get a basic understanding of this man, you have to delve through a lot of shit. And this is why so far in my Onision's Crimes Against series, I have only covered products of Onision. I've covered his books, I've covered his music, but I haven't actually looked at the man himself, because there is just so much shit to cover, and I can tell you now, having covered it, that shit is infinitely worse than all of his books and all of his music combined. But let's be realistic here, people. I couldn't finish this little Onision series and be proud of it without covering the dreaded Onion himself. Because, you see, Onision is an awful person. In fact, he's probably one of the worst people to ever upload to YouTube. There's very few YouTubers that I actually genuinely despise. 95% of the time, it's just the content they make that I have a problem with, and I actually have nothing against the person that produces the content. I might maybe make a few dumb jokes about them, maybe tell them to go outside and reconsider their fucking life choices, but other than that, I wouldn't really care, wouldn't have anything against the content creator, just the shit they're creating. But Onision is one of my few exceptions. I don't just have a problem with his content, I have a problem with him as well. And in the last two parts of this little trilogy, I think I've done a pretty decent job of proving to you that the content Onision produces is complete and utter garbage. So by the end of this video, ladies and gentlemen, I hope to have explained to you why Onision is just as grotesque and despicable as his shitty fucking content. I feel by this point in time a lot of people don't like Onision, which is a very good thing. But again, because of the sheer amount of things he's done in his YouTube career, it's really daunting for the average internet scroller or someone who might not be too familiar with him or familiar at all. A lot of people might be aware of some of the shit he's done, but not all of it, simply because, again, there's so much of it. In other words, a lot of people know that he's a terrible person, but some still don't. And even the ones that do might not realise the full extent. Again, because of just how deep that onion-shaped rabbit hole goes. So that's my goal today with this video. I have spent the last 6 months delving as far down this onion-shaped rabbit hole as I possibly can without literally losing what's left of my sanity. I've sorted through as much of the shit as he's done as I humanly can and compiled it into what I hope is an easy and digestible format. One that not only people who know Onion Boy very well can follow, but also people who have never heard his name before in their lives can follow just as easily. Bear in mind, I haven't covered every single nook and cranny of Onision's complete shit show of an internet career, because if I tried to do that, this video would probably be several hours long and several years late. But I've tried to put in as much information as I can while sticking to the essentials and not going off on too many tangents. And by the end of this video, I hope to have explained, even to the average person who isn't too familiar with Onision, why he's a terrible, terrible person. And if I do it well enough, who knows, maybe you won't like him by the end of this video either. So you might need one of these as we progress forward, because we're about to enter a very hazardous area. Let's start off by meeting the main antagonist of this video, Greg Groomer Onision. Just in case you're not too familiar with who this walking bag of urine is, I'm going to give you a few brief points, a few brief general pieces of trivia that will give you a nice overview of the kind of man we're dealing with today. This is a man who has actively false reported and false copyright strike videos that talk negatively about him for over a decade.
I really appreciate having an audience willing to go above and beyond supporting me dealing with your years of false copyright abuse.
The mother of one of his ex-girlfriends, Shiloh, once described him as evil incarnate. In 2016, following the tragic shooting of YouTuber and singer Christina Grimmie at one of her own concerts, Onision took to Twitter and went on a rant about how your thoughts, prayers and condolences don't matter at all because they didn't resurrect her. This is a man who in the early 2000s, just before starting YouTube, tried to found his own religious cult by ripping off lore from Final Fantasy VII. It had its own rules, tenets, website, it even had its own religious deity figure to worship. A deity figure that, on several occasions, Onision suggested was himself. This man once killed his own tortoise, named Reptar, because apparently he can't spell reptile, by leaving it under a plastic container in the blistering heat for hours. In September 2019, Onision's young daughter, who couldn't have been older than 4 at the time, fell out of a 20-foot high window, which caused her to fracture her skull. Not only did Onision allow this to happen, he didn't even hear it happen. He didn't hear her screams of pain either, until the poor little girl came up to the garage door and knocked on it to get his attention. And when this little girl did finally have Onision's attention, he filmed her, along with where she fell from, just in case people on the internet blamed him for it. Only then did he call a fucking ambulance. And all of this is just the tip of the iceberg. Actually, it's not even the tip of the iceberg. It's like a tiny little snowflake that's resting on the tip of the iceberg. This is fucking nothing compared to what we're about to go through. Greg first took to YouTube in 2006 when he created the first of his many humorous channels, Onision. This channel started out as pretty much what every single YouTube channel was back in the 2000s, just a place where people could upload short, low quality, and very weird videos. It's not really until 2008 that the onion disease begins to spread and mutate. This channel, Onision Archive, was created in December 2008 and functioned at first as just a secondary backup channel, but later became a place, you guessed it, where he would archive his own shit. A year later, in 2009, August to be precise, Onision creates the Onision Speaks channel. This was apparently created at first with the sole intention of promoting vegetarianism.
This is my vegetarian body!
Had to get that meme in the video. It's like a fucking tick list. There we go, it's done now. However, reasonably early into this channel's life, he moved away from just vegetarianism and started creating self-help and advice videos. And I say self-help and advice in massive quotation marks because everything that Onision says is at best total bollocks and at worst seriously damaging and fucked up. Then in 2012 we get the last main player in this foul lineup of Onision channels, Uh-Oh Bro. This channel, to the best of my knowledge, started life as a fucking reaction channel. Sort of bottom of the barrel sort of content. Greg would essentially just use this channel to go on the internet and find something and just react to and watch it in real time. And he did this all the way up until 2019 when he finally abandoned this channel. I should say as well, Onision has made plenty of other channels as well, the most recent of which was in 2017. But for the most part, they're not important, they don't house any crucial informational videos, or they're just completely fucking pointless. You've got one here that was made in 2011 called Onision Songs, which has been empty and abandoned for nearly a decade now and has got less than 300 subscribers. You've got another one here that he made solely for vlogging and making deep, profound videos. They're basically the exact same shit that you'd find on r/I'm 14 and this is deep. I mean, look, fuck, he's even got one called New Channel. I mean, for God's sake, I don't need to go through all of these, do I? It's just not important. There's enough shit content and shit channels to go through without including all of this trivial bollocks in it as well, alright? Just cut me a break. I've been through a lot. By this point in time, every single Onision channel has either been partly or completely purged by the Great Onion himself, thanks to factors like Chris Hansen, more later, and just the ever-mounting pile of evidence that Gregory has amassed about himself over the years. Thankfully though, a lot of the evidence and shit against Onision has been saved, so while it took me a little longer to find, these purges did fuck all to hinder me, Greg. So well done, all your efforts were pointless.
You slice into your skin, how do you not think, I'm a moron? 9 out of 10 chance that if you're watching this right now and you self-harm, you're a white girl. I don't care if it says 1 out of 7 guys. No, the mass majority is chicks. Some crazy little likely white teenager.
Who cares if I can't figure out exactly which of your many shitty channels this particular horrible clip of you saying something awful came from? I've still got the clip, which you wanted to hide, so it's still a win in my book.
Is there even a point to makeup if you're not light-skinned?
It's worth mentioning too that the first original Onision channel has, throughout its time, been kept as a channel primarily just for music and sketches and parodies. And again, all of those words I throw out with massive quotation marks. I've already done a video on how shit his music is. I can assure you, his parodies and sketches are no fucking better. So the original Onision channel, its upload schedule was pretty infrequent. He would occasionally upload sketches or music there, while other channels such as Onision Speaks or Uh-Oh Bro would upload the majority of the regular Onision content. And they'd have much more regular upload schedules as well. Prior to 2009, Onision seems to have had a moderately sized YouTube audience. Bear in mind that YouTube channels and YouTube audiences were significantly smaller back then than they are today. As an example of this, a channel only surpassed 1 million subscribers for the first time in 2009, and that was the Fred channel, which tells you everything you need to know about internet humour and the state of YouTube in the late 2000s. So considering that Fred was the first ever channel to hit 1 million subscribers and was immensely popular at this time, it's not really a surprise to learn that Onision's first hit video was the fucking Banana song.
I'm a banana, I'm a banana, I'm a banana, look at me, man!
Uploaded in September 2009, this is what sparked Onision's channels off properly. It's fucking wank. I mean, to be fair, it's not really that much worse than, you know, a lot of the content on YouTube back in 2009. The only difference is other people who made shit in 2009 still aren't plugging it to this day. Certainly by 2010 anyway, Onision was a pretty big player on the YouTube scene. So while he probably had been growing reasonably consistently prior to releasing this musical car crash, it was the musical car crash that really started pulling in the big numbers for him. And so as YouTube leaves the late 2000s and heads into the early 2010s, it begins to transform itself. It goes from just another weird website on the internet where people upload random shit to a more streamlined website where lots of different genres of content are uploaded, where people put more time and effort into making their videos. A website that suddenly people are making celebrity-like careers out of. A pseudo-celebrity career on the internet with a large audience of adoring and loyal fans. You can bet your ass that old Gregory wanted a slice of this cake. And so this in turn probably explains why Onision started making new channels and making these new discussion, self-help, advice-esque videos. The poetic irony of all this, though, is all these new channels that Onision made, all these new veins of content he started creating in an attempt to create himself a YouTube career, they were the first signs to his audience that Onision wasn't quite what he claimed to be. By this point in time, it's not exactly a hot take to call Onision a rampant fucking narcissist. Anyone that knows their YouTube, even remotely, it's a common known fact by this point. But it's my little game theory that prior to 2009, Onision's rampant narcissism wasn't really known about or on show very much. And that's because, again, during this period of time, YouTube was a much smaller platform which consisted of most people, including Onision himself, just making very short, dumb, poor quality sketch videos essentially. So it's not until after 2009, with the advent of his discussion, reaction, self-help videos, etc., that Onision's real and much more toxic personality begins to bleed out into his content. Sure, there's plenty of evidence from even before YouTube existed that Onision's a pretty sketchy piece of shit. But during the 2000s and even arguably the early 2010s, this information wasn't really known about. Unless you were an avid subscriber or critic of Onision, it's pretty safe to say that you probably wouldn't know about Onision's terrible actions, or at the very least, you wouldn't know all the details about them. It's my belief that Gregory's narcissism starting to come out into his content was the first sign for many casual Onision followers or casual YouTube scrollers that there was something a bit off about this guy. And people began to glimpse this narcissism, again, I believe, in these self-help, reaction, I need a fucking better name for them at this point, but you know what I mean, those sort of videos.
You don't fucking know me. You have never met me, so shut your fucking dumb shit ass up about this narcissism.
While he started making them in 2009 semi-regularly, he soon likely realised that these were both very easy and very popular to make at the time. So he began to produce more and more and more of them as we go into the early 2010s, until eventually we reached the pinnacle in 2012 with the foundation of the Uh-Oh Bro YouTube channel, which, as I mentioned, started its pitiful existence primarily as a reaction channel. It's also around this time, more importantly, that Onision begins to receive submissions for his content. Not just questions and dilemmas from adoring fans, but also photo submissions for these self-help, advice, reaction, rating videos. And these photo submissions would eventually culminate in one of the darkest corners of Onision's internet career: his many forum pages. The Onision forums began, as far as I can tell, as early back as 2014, and from the second they did, they started very consistently changing name and URL, probably to try and fucking keep people he didn't like from finding them, but that didn't fucking work. In 2016, the Onision forums took on its most dreaded form, the one people are probably most familiar with, onision.xyz. Regardless of what they were called and what link they had, though, very quickly on these forums, threads would begin to appear with names like Onision rates you 1 out of 10. How old does Onision think you are? What does Onision think of your body? Can you Can you start to smell the narcissism yet?
Next contest, go to onision.com/submits and upload a picture of yourself kissing in the weirdest way or kissing the weirdest thing you can find. I want these pictures to disturb me.
These began to more frequently appear as time went on, again, especially on the very infamous onision.xyz forum page. Now here's the real bombshell. Are you ready for this? Sit down, fucking prepare yourself. Many of these photo submissions, which would later go on to appear in YouTube videos and make up the bulk of Onision's content, were from minors. Confirmed minors.
Here we have the first entry. She says, BTW, I'm 13.
In 2019, these forums, along with most of the videos the forum posts spawned, were purged by Onision, mainly because Chris Hansen decided to take a stroll up to his front door. Again, more on that later. Prior to this though, literally years and years and years worth of dodgy threads and incriminating evidence had built up on these several different forum sites. Apparently Onision just didn't care or didn't have any moderators because none of it was being taken down. It was just consistently multiplying all the way up until 2019 when it all disappeared. By the time Onision did sit down and look at all the awful shit on his forums, so much of it had built up that a lot of it has been thoroughly archived. Shall we have a look? Have Onision rate you 1 to 10. I'm 15. Fat, thin, or healthy? Hey, I'm going to be 17 in January. Rate me from 1 to 10. Took 20 minutes to upload the file. Hit me with your best shot. I'm 15. Would Onision date you? Obviously, I'm much younger than him, so for that reason, no. But if that wasn't an issue, maybe. What age does Greg think you are? I'm not going to tell you how old I really am, because I'm in a few other videos of you, and it would cause you problems. Ha 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 ha. I'm under 18. What age does Greg think you are? 16. It's legal here, though. Lol. What does Lainey think about your body? Post a picture of your body and let Lainey judge. 16 plus. And again, the subjects of these posts, such as rating someone 1 to 10, guessing their age, or telling them if their tits are too big or small, they would make up the bulk of his fucking content.
Meanwhile, this girl's like 8 out of 10. Yeah, solid 8.
But Greg, what if she's 15 years old?
Well, last time I checked, we're allowed to have opinions about people.
So it's not enough that a 14-year-old is posting lewd pictures of themselves to your forums. No, that's not enough. You've then got to take those posts and make fucking videos out of them and share those videos to an audience of millions.
That's just fucked up. What is wrong with me?
Now anyone with half a brainstem can see that this is all very, very, very weird. But for the sake of doing this properly and being thorough, let's break this down. There are two seriously major problems with these kinds of videos that Onision was making. Problem one, Onision is showing off and rating pictures of children. It doesn't matter if he's trying to guess their age, or rating their looks, or outfit, or selfie. Onision is essentially giving a child as young as possibly 12 a rating out of 10. He's basically got a big pile of fucking selfies from minors, and he's gathered them all, and he's looking at them all on camera and going, yeah, don't like this one, but now this one here is mighty fine looking. Now Onision's main defense for these videos and for the forums was that lots of people of different ages submitted stuff for these videos. It's not just minors, there's lots of people in their 20s and 30s too. He can't stop children from posting on the forums. And this defense is complete and utter shit for one very simple reason. Nobody really cares if you're rating the looks of a consenting adult. Sure, it's a bit weird that you asked them to send you pictures for you to rate, but they're over the age, you're over the age, you've both consented, so who cares? You can rate the looks of a 24-year-old all you like, Greg. Go to fucking town. The issue here is that once you've finished rating that 24-year-old, you immediately move on and do the same to a 15-year-old. Sure, you can't stop minors and young teenagers submitting things to your forum, but you can just decide not to put them in your videos, especially if the video titles have quite a sexual undertone, especially if the young children and minors posting tell you their age in the forum submissions. And I don't know, maybe you shouldn't encourage minors to post shit in these submissions either. So don't try and put this on the audience, Gregory. This is your responsibility here. But let's be fucking realistic, Onision has never ever ever taken responsibility, has he? Problem 2. Greg will always talk and give his opinion as if it is the undisputed truth, as if it is proven fact. Now, This is to be expected because Greg has got an ego the size of a small planet, and you have to understand as well that Greg isn't just convinced that everything he says is right, it's that he thinks that his opinions and suggestions and ideas are actually better than yours. Not only that, they're infallible, and they're the only opinions and suggestions and ideas even worth considering. Anything else is wrong.
Before you run off to Tumblr and add yet another hateful blog to the pile of hateful blogs about me, know that you are wrong, and eventually you will likely come around. I'm right, you know I'm right, so shut up.
So when Gregory makes a video about, say, a more sensitive topic like self-harm or abuse, or perhaps, you know, rating someone's body, whatever he says or recommends is law in his mind. Not just an idea that you can consider, but something you absolutely should do, or else you're an idiot. Here's a tweet Gregory once put out where he states that, in his opinion, people who get abused and who don't immediately report their abusers are just as bad as the people who abused them. This is a belief, by the way, that he has not just held, but defended since way back in the late 90s, early 2000s when he tried to start a weird religious cult. Point is, anyone who disagrees or differs from this very, very morally fucked take is automatically wrong and doesn't even deserve consideration in his mind. So if he makes a video rating people 1 to 10, for example, and rates someone a 3 and really fucks with their self-esteem, he doesn't care. His opinion's the only one that matters. If you live in an abusive household and you take his quite demented and probably really bad advice and it doesn't work, well, that's not his fault. You just weren't doing it right. The defense Onision consistently gave was that people freely, willingly, either asked for his advice or submitted him selfies to be rated and for him to give advice on. They want Onision's opinion and he's all too happy to give it. But here's the point. They want an opinion, not a fucking order. In Greg's mind, people aren't coming to him to hear ideas and suggestions that they might take on board. They're coming to him to do exactly as they say, and if they don't do exactly what he says, they're a cuck slash hater slash loser, and Onision has a personal problem with them now. Not only that, he will give you his advice or his opinion or whatever, and you're expected to think that it's the most amazing fucking profound thing you've ever heard in your life, and you're supposed to take this advice with generous thanks and forever praise Gregory's name. That's what I have to make very, very clear here. In Onision's mind, the only perspective of worth is his own. So if you have a different one or disagree with his, well, dear Gregory doesn't like that very much.
You don't think I'm a great actor?
Then what the fuck are you doing watching my goddamn channel? You motherfucking piece of shit!
So by this point in the video, we have essentially what is the bedrock, the foundations, if you like, on which the vast majority of Onision's crimes are built off. Firstly, that his behaviour towards and treatment of children, especially his underage fans, is questionable at best. And secondly, that he will not accept any opinions, ideas, or suggestions that are exactly like his own. Which by proxy means he won't accept any form of criticism at all, and not only believes that he's always right, but actually better than others. Hold these two thoughts in your mind, because as we move forward, you'll realise for yourself that most, if not all, of Onision's crimes are either partly or completely founded on these two problems, or at the very best, are severely worsened by them. So we've established that Onision isn't very good with different opinions. Far fucking from it, honestly. But what you have to consider is this self-indulging mentality also applies to things like beliefs, ideologies, ways of life, preference. Basically, it's not enough that you just completely agree with Greg. Oh, no. You have to be exactly like Greg as well. And if you aren't, or if you dare to challenge his subjective ideas of normal and right, he's probably going to have a problem with you. This is probably most evident from the comments he's made about people who are of different weight to him, i.e. people that are too thin or too fat for his personal liking.
You are so fat, there's probably 3,000 dead animal fragments inside your body just floating around.
Like the bad proportions curse, or as some call it, Shrek body.
Greg has a serious issue with fat people for some reason. It's no secret at this point. In the past, he's made several videos calling them out, making fun of them. In his second book, I say book with big quotation marks. In his second book, This Is Why I Hate You, he several times just pauses the story and completely breaks the narrative to remind people that he thinks characters are too fat or too thin, and he doesn't like them for this reason. While on the other hand, his self-insert of a main character is still in perfect shape. This isn't just Onision suggesting, hey, maybe you should lose/gain a little bit of weight. No worries if you don't want to. If you're happy with how you look, that's fine. Just my suggestion. No, what he is saying here is, if you do not completely agree with what I believe to be right/attractive/healthy, you're fucking wrong and I hate you. And there is no finer example of this than the way he's treated Eugenia Cooney. Eugenia Cooney, for those of you who might not be aware, is a YouTuber with anorexia and bulimia, which are two disorders that make it very difficult for people to eat and to keep food down. So as a result, to put it as plainly as I can, she's pretty skinny. Dangerously so. And Onision doesn't like this because it doesn't square up with his own personal opinions on things like weight and body image and mental health. So he has actively made it his business to mock and shame Eugenia Cooney for her condition.
Hi, I'm Eugenia Cooney and I'm doing a cooking show. By the way, check out my outfit of the day. Okay, so I just add the main food. You shouldn't be concerned. I go to the bathroom through my mouth, so it's okay.
Of course, people have tried to point out to dear old Gregory that Eugenia does have genuine mental health issues that account for her behaviour. She's certainly not doing it for attention like you've applied, you colossal fuckstick. But you see, Onision isn't too great with the idea of mental health either, because it doesn't fit into, again, what he thinks is right.
Hey, why is it we're always hearing about kids having autism? What about adults? Where are they? Oh, mental hospitals. That's awkward.
It's also something, paradoxically, that he talks about a lot and panders about a lot, and we'll cover that more in the next section. But for now, suffice to say, any kind of mental disorder or mental health issue that Greg doesn't understand, he doesn't like it. The same applies to Onision's social beliefs as well. For example, Onision is an atheist, or at least that's what he claims half the time. The other half of the time, he's still claiming to be the founder of a weird religious cult.
Hey there, I'm Onision, Greg for short, or you could just call me G.
And no, I am not going to stop bringing that up because I'm still not fucking over it myself. But look, for the sake of simplicity for this argument, we'll just say that he's an atheist for now. Anyone who isn't an atheist or has a differing opinion about atheism to Onision is stupid in his eyes. This is something he did a lot in his books as well. He would deliberately make it clear to you that this character is religious, and for that reason, they're stupid. Unlike, again, Gregory's self-insert of a main character, who is in fact a mega-woke atheist, and super clever because of it. And as I mentioned in my Onision book review, I'm an atheist as well. I don't believe in any gods or any religions, but I can still respect those who do. So long as they're not being assholes about it and trying to ram their beliefs down my throat, I couldn't care less. Let's agree to disagree. Believe what you want for all I care, as long as it's not hurting other people. You know, basically, I wouldn't treat them like, oh, I don't know, utter filth, because they think differently to me. And Greg is incapable of this. Any opinion, idea, belief, suggestion that might contradict his own will be treated with zero tolerance. It's his way or the highway in the most toxic way you can imagine. And yet, despite this... Now, I'm no biologist, I assure you, but Tyrone the T-Rex here is actually an expert in neurobiology, so I asked for his expert opinion, and even without his expert opinion, I can say, with quite a lot of plausibility, that Onision is fucking spineless. Onision panders like nothing I've ever seen before. If pandering was a sport, he'd be first place every time. And I should say as well, it's the only thing he'd ever be first place in, because Onision is a complete and total loser. He's sucked up to so many different groups of people at this point in time that I think it's genuinely harder to try and think of a group that he hasn't wanked off. And the best bit of all, the poetic irony, if you will, is he will try to suck up to groups of people that in the past he's made fun of or called out, because he's got zero spine, and all he wants is attention and validation to fuel his ever-growing, but equally ever-fragile ego. Oh, you're not convinced? Let me take you through just some of the groups he's tried to suck off.
They stuff their body full of products that will completely destroy the the way they look. They just weren't born with the right genes.
Yeah, I don't really have to go any further with this one, do I?
Fat people, if you were meant to not be fat, the diets you've tried out probably would have worked by now. So the next time you go to eat something unhealthy and someone gives you a dirty look, just realize that philosophically you're on a whole different level than they are.
Oh, I'm sorry. Isn't this the same person that said...
If you can put that much of your gut on the counter, you might have some weight to lose.
Oh, I'm sorry. Isn't this the same guy that said...
So should I get up or would that be too hard? I would manage my eating, but my self-control's that's hard.
No, just me. Oh, silly old me. Of course, Gregory Groomer Onision couldn't have done anything wrong, could he? Because he's fucking infallible. God, I fucking hate this man.
If I cared about my health, why do I have 4,000 dimples?
Eating disorders are horribly dangerous. They are something to be taken very, very seriously if you know someone is actually suffering an eating disorder. And a lot of you guys are going through an eating disorder right now, and I want to say knock it the fuck off.
Now here's the weird one about this, because this is Onision trying to pander to people. He starts off by saying, oh look, eating disorders are dangerous, you shouldn't take these things lightly, and then he just immediately undermines that by saying, cut it the fuck out. Do you understand how mental health issues work, you fucking idiot? This is Onision genuinely trying to pander to a group of people, i.e. people with mental health issues, but his ego is so huge, his narcissism is so rampant, that he can't help put his own degenerate opinions in there anyway. Like, could you not shut the fuck up and keep your own thoughts to yourself for 2 minutes? You couldn't even do it for a clickbait video. You lack any kind of self-control, you moron.
I mean, this is why Jesus loved so many people. This is why Gandhi was so forgiving of so many people. Because those two people recognized that we are completely and utterly out of control.
Again, in basically all of these suck-up cases, Greg will just try and clickbait and set up the scene of a video where it looks like he's being sympathetic towards a certain group of people, where he seems to understand them and get them and wants to help them. And he'll do this obviously just to win shallow internet points or brownie points with a certain community or views / attention for his fragile ego. But then ultimately, his blatant narcissism will always bleed through and he'll just come out with a really dodgy as fuck statement and he won't even give it a second thought. He'll just think whatever he said is fine, and then he'll get confused and angry when people call him out for it. Basically what I'm saying here is this isn't so much shooting yourself in the foot, this is strapping a missile to your foot and setting it off with a lighter.
I want you guys to think about the progress LGBT has made in the last 50 years.
Onision has tried to pander to pretty much every LGBT group under the sun at this point. He's claimed to be bisexual, he's claimed to be gay, he's claimed to be transgender at one point. And Onision doesn't have a problem with every single LGBT group. He certainly doesn't mind bisexuals because he's got constant weird fantasies about doing it with multiple women, so that makes it okay in his mind. But then again, on the other side of the fence, he's done exactly to transgender people what he did to religious people and fat people before. Mock them and make fun of them, and then just turn around and try to be like, hey, we're friends, aren't we? Why don't you give me attention?
A video was suggested to me by Onision called Yes, I'm Transgender, It Is Not a Mental Illness. Well, I, after watching this piece of garbage, had to react to it because the title of the video should actually have been, Yes, I'm an asshole and I am willing to do anything for views because I have a personality disorder.
I should point out as well that Onision's husband is a transgender man, so whew, that's fucking dodgy, innit? In early December of 2018, Onision uploaded a video to his channel where he talked about how as a teen he'd had some minor involvement with the furry community, thanks to one of his friends at the time. And although he had never identified as a furry, he mentioned feeling very welcome and at home amongst them. He even says that at one point he had made a crude drawing of a fursona, which he had found again recently and decided to touch up a bit. Later in the video, he says that he is planning to more openly participate in the furry community, and even possibly to order a custom fursuit. Onision has no spine, Onision has no standards. Anyone will do. Just give me attention and money and wank my ego off a bit, please. Also, sorry, that's your fursona. I thought fursonas were supposed to be an animal, not a sentient vacuum cleaner bag. And apparently he touched this up as well. If that's the touched up version, what the fuck did the original look like? I mean, it's no surprise at this point, but, you know, Onision has no talents. He can't write, he can't make music, and this proves that he can't fucking draw either. Now, if I have done my job correctly, and you've been paying attention to the last 4 sections, you'll probably agree with me when I say that Onision is a pretty terrible person. And honest to God, the worst about him is still to come. But so far in the video, if you're thinking that he's narcissistic to the point of delusion, cannot take any form of criticism, cannot accept any idea or opinion that isn't exactly like his own, and is desperate for constant praise and attention and validation, then I've been doing a good job so far. But you see, all of this is again just the tip of the iceberg, because videos of people on the internet do not accurately portray what these people are like in real life. If you just know someone through YouTube videos, you can't fully understand what they're like in real life as a person when the camera turns off. Sure, it can give you a vague idea, but never the full picture. So I ask you this. If this is what Onision is like in his YouTube videos, where he will intentionally try to come off as a nicer and more likable person, then what's he like in real life? To the people closest around him, to the people he claims to love.
Hello.
Tyrone, thank goodness you picked up. I am the High Judge and I am calling from the Royal Stock Image Courtroom.
Bitch, who gave you my number?
How I got your number isn't important right now, I'm just glad you have picked up. We've been trying to get through to him for hours now.
Yeah. He's been filming that dumbass evidence for you all afternoon. It's nearly done. Don't worry.
This isn't about the footage.
Greg
rumor Onision has escaped, and we suspect he is heading straight for you and Moocake. We are sending units to aid you, but they may not reach in time. You must gather any weapons you have and fortify your bunker.
Dude, are you fucking stupid? You let one of your most maximum security risk prisoners escape. Isn't your whole job to ensure that doesn't happen? That's dumb as fuck, dude.
I'm sorry. Do you have any idea who you are talking to?
Bitch, I don't care. I'm Tyrone the T-Rex, and I wield more power than you could ever realize. I'll whap your ass all the way to next Tuesday, and then I'll be waiting there next Tuesday to whap you back again, LMAO.
Let us not get hasty.
Plus, you're the one that got us into this mess in the first place. So I'll speak to you how I like. Thanks for warning us, but fuck you for causing this.
This is fair, but surely Tyrone, if you do truly wield the power of the nether dimensions as you so hint, surely you will do something magnificent to stop him.
Bitch, I'll have to do something magnificent now thanks to your dumbus. I'm going to go hang up and prepare shit now. Don't call me again.
Onision has, from the very dawn of his shitshow YouTube career, shared off his relationships, partners, and various girlfriends quite a lot in videos. He's been very public about discussing his relationship, who he's dating, having said people in his videos, and even sharing very intimate details from the relationship.
If you guys don't know, within the male anatomy, there's this thing called the P-spot. This is the area of my body I repeatedly asked my wife to stimulate. She refused, saying she thought it was weird. I have certain needs that she refuses to fulfill. I know this is private information, but you guys should know so you at least understand where I'm coming from.
Some details are way too fucking intimate. Since Onision started YouTube, he's had quite a lot of relationships, though I'm not sure relationship is the right word to describe them, because relationship implies there's some sort of love involved. So with that all said, I'd like to take you through the history of Onision's relationships since he started YouTube back in 2006. And bear in mind as we go forward that I'm just covering the essentials here. There's probably a hell of a lot more that he's done if you really wanted to go down that rabbit hole. Just consider that as we're going along, alright? The year before starting his channel, Onision married a woman called Sky. They had seemingly been together for a while, they'd known each other for many years, possibly since they were teenagers in fact, and Sky appears in quite a few of Onision's earliest videos, in particular the piece of auditory torture known as the Banana Song.
Sky! What, Greg?
Piece of trash.
However, alas, my brethren, this marriage was never to be, and in December of 2010, the couple split up. During and following the divorce procedure, Greg starts to make a series of videos about his ex-wife, painting her in, shall we say, not the nicest of lights.
That money that you asked me to give you for the sake of your survival, because you won't take the 2 years of living that I offered you here. I was going to pay for all your bills. I was going to pay for your room and everything. I'm still going to do that. And I said that I would pay you $1,000 a month if you wanted to move out to help you live on your own. I'm still going to do that. I just really wish you would have told me that you were going to take over $2,000 of my stuff.
There's one video where he compares paying alimony to slavery, which is just warped beyond belief. There's another one where he accuses her of stealing a load of his shit. It just really begins to get quite sinister after a while. My own little game theory is when they first split up, Greg didn't care because, let's be realistic here, this is Onision. He clearly lacks human feeling. But then when the court proceedings and alimony and shit like that started up, Greg did get a bit pissed off about the whole thing because it involved him doing nice things for Sky and giving her money. Anyway, he proceeds to start making a lot of negative videos and comments about Sky on Twitter, on YouTube, and he effectively scares her off the platform. Because here is Onision, who at this point in time is very popular and has a very large following, and he's sending them all after this woman who doesn't have any following at all. It's effectively hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people against one person. It's not exactly fair. It's almost an entire decade before Sky finally returns to the internet and takes to Twitter to share her side of the story. Needless to say, her side of the story proved that a lot of Onision's angry videos about Sky were at best complete nonsense and at worst blatant lies. Anyway, following Sky, Onision starts seeing a woman called Shiloh. She's 17, from Canada, and even has her own minor music career, while Onision is 25, recently divorced and making shitty internet videos. In fact, recently divorced is probably stretching it a bit, because there's a lot of evidence to support at this point that Onision and Shiloh were talking at least a month before Onision's separation with Sky.
And I held up these papers, and he was like, "These are divorce papers. This guy signed them."
Divorce papers?
Yeah, and I'm divorcing Sky. And then he went on to explain that it was because he had fallen in love with me.
So you never know, maybe that helped to speed up the old divorce paper shit. Now, you might have noticed that all of a sudden there's a slightly dodgy age gap appearing here. Sky is only a year younger than Onision, so no problems there, but suddenly Shiloh's 17. That's an 8-year age gap when they get together. Anyway, they get together sometime around Onision's separation from Sky, and they make their relationship public in and around April of 2011.
Hey guys, as I'm sure you know because I'm incredibly famous, and I wanted you to meet my girlfriend.
Didn't last long though, they fucking broke up in July, and oh my god, did they break up hard. Onision and Shiloh's relationship was never particularly smooth. In fact, it was the polar opposite of smooth, to be perfectly honest. For example, when Shiloh, shortly before their breakup, suffered a seizure which caused her temporary memory loss, Onision decided to film it and upload the video to YouTube instead of calling her an ambulance.
Shiloh?
Don't make a rainbow.
Look at this, look at this. Hey, calm down. You're in my house, okay?
Why?
No, it's okay, it's okay. Look, I'll show you.
And he justified this in a later video by saying that he didn't call the ambulance because he wouldn't want someone to call an ambulance for him. What? Doesn't matter what the fuck you want, just call a fucking ambulance, you monster. From August 2011 onwards, Greg goes through a slew of very short relationships. Most of these relationships only last a few weeks and they all follow the same pattern. Onision will post a video to his channel announcing that he's got a new girlfriend and that she's the one and that he's so happy and that he can't believe that he's finally stumbled across the woman of his dreams. And then a few weeks pass and Onision posts another video explaining that they split up and that she's actually a bitch, and he spends the next couple of weeks attacking this ex-girlfriend and accusing her of various bullshit. One such ex-girlfriend called Adrian, for example, explains in a very long email that after breaking up with Onision, and let me tell you, the breakup wasn't remotely nice anyway, she spent weeks being harassed by Onision, who accused her of having an STD and giving him an STD, all of which was complete and utter nonsense. It wasn't true, any of it. It was just an excuse for Onision to attack this woman, essentially. In this long statement from Adrian, Onision as a partner is described to be very controlling and very dismissive, not really paying attention to the needs or wants or feelings of his partner, and being very, very controlling and assertive and telling her even how she should behave. But then towards the end of the relationship, when Adrian began to assert herself and break up with Onision, Onision suddenly 180s and becomes very sympathetic and upset. Basically, when you think about it, it's very manipulative behaviour, dismissive and controlling towards your partner up until she fights back, and then suddenly, oh, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean it, you're the greatest thing in the world, you know, please don't leave me. But then, in the twist of the century, Onision and Shiloh get back together in October of 2011. Onision announces this in a video in November of 2011, along with the news that Shiloh is pregnant and they're going to be having a child together. This, however, was never to be, as sadly the pregnancy ended in a miscarriage. And so by December, this relationship is already on the rocks again. Less on the rocks, more splintering against them, actually.
Greg and I decided that this year we'd go for realism, so he took the scissors to my ear in my sleep, and now I'm bleeding. But, I mean, it's a great look. It's gonna scare all the kids, you know? It hurts a lot, actually.
You know this video's never gonna be online, right? No one will ever know how much I abuse you. It's ridiculous that you think you'll be successful. How many times do I have to tell you everything that you want to put online goes through me first? Want some candy corn?
Thanks for watching, guys.
Hey, open your mouth. Open your mouth. Open your mouth.
No, Greg, I don't want any.
Open your mouth.
I don't want any, Greg. Ow! Ow, that one really, really hurt. Greg, I'm wearing
that
shorts.
candy cord hurt. That candy cord really hurt, Greg. Oh, that candy cord was like a razor blade. Your candy cord hurt, Greg.
The couple start to get less and less sincere in their video interactions together. Onision eventually publishes a video claiming that Shiloh has got sepsis and has to go back to Canada for treatment.
What would normally be 14 weeks to 16 weeks approximate gestation, when the baby had actually died at 5 weeks. And so she informed me that I could go extremely septic if I didn't get help. I Googled sepsis. Or I Googled septic infections, or I can't remember what I Googled, but it came up as sepsis for me. So Greg released a video called Shiloh Has Sepsis. I went off to Canada.
Did you ever think one moment to take you to the emergency room or to the hospital instead of making a video?
No, he straight up told me he wasn't going to pay for the health care.
And then a few weeks after this, Onision finally admits that the two have broken up and starts accusing her of various things. Interestingly, Shiloh did admit to emotionally cheating on Onision. However, considering Greg's track record and the way he's treated people in his relationships, it's not really a surprise that maybe she'd admit that, considering how manipulative he can be. Either way, Greg refuses Shiloh's apology, and much like every other public relationship he's ever had, it slowly devolves into a load of pointless drama, and Onision accusing his ex of various crimes. So by the start of 2012, Greg is once again single and looking for love. Okay, maybe love isn't the right word here. How about victims instead? And by February, he's found another one. His next partner was, at the time, called Lainey, but is now called Kai, after he came out as a transgender man. Prior to his transition, though, Kai was most commonly known by his Twitter handle, LaineyBot. And anyone that's familiar with Onision will probably be familiar with this name as well. Now, when these two got together, Greg was 26 years old, and Kai was, wait for it, fucking 17. So now there's a 9-year age gap here, ladies and gentlemen. We're really racking up a fucking high score, aren't we? Greg and Kai settle into this new rocky relationship pretty quickly. Within a month of it beginning, a ring suddenly begins to appear on Kai's finger in videos. By October of 2012, the two have announced that they're engaged, and by November, they're married. By this point in time, by the way, Kai had only recently just turned 18. In around July of 2013, Kai comes out as bisexual, and from this point on, things begin to get really, really fucking weird. I know what you're thinking to yourself, isn't it already weird? No, no, no. No, no, no. You haven't seen anything yet, ladies and gents. Oh my god. Following Kai's announcement that he thinks the grass is just as green on both sides of the fence, Greg gives him full permission to start seeing other people while they're in a relationship together. And this, eventually, inevitably, turns Onision's already weird little relationship into a three-way relationship. In December 2015, Kai starts seeing a woman called Billy. Now, Billy was born in April of 1997, which makes her, as I'm sure all you clever people at home have guessed, 17 years old at this point in time. Bear that in mind because Kai, at this point in time, has just turned 21, while Gregory is fucking 30. 13-year age gap now. Ding, 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 ding. I think we've got a high score. Maybe you should fucking stop now, Greg. Now, I say that Kai started seeing Billy because at first, Onision maintained that he had no kind of relationship with Billy whatsoever. They were purely friends, purely platonic, and it was only Kai and Billy that were in a romantic relationship.
I'm coming for you.
Come to me.
Almost there.
Wait, what?
That's right, baby. Your lips taste like cherry.
But Onion Boy and Billy would still do videos together quite regularly without Kai. They would talk and interact with each other a hell of a lot anyway. And eventually Onision admits to giving Billy an erotic massage while Kai isn't about.
I gave her that massage, I took a shower. After I was done taking a shower, she went and took a shower. And the rest of the night we cuddled and watched movies. Lainey's position is, it wasn't the cuddling and it definitely wasn't the full body massage. It was really all about the fact that she clearly indicated she did not want me cuddling with this person. Yet I manipulated my way into cuddling with her anyway. So she saw a huge betrayal in that.
This is just exhausting, and we're not even halfway through yet. Honestly, how do people present things like Love Island? You know, this just pointless relationship drama shit. I don't understand how people can present these kind of TV shows and keep their brain intact, because I can feel mine leaking out of my ears at this point. Well done, Gregory. You've elevated your relationships to such sheer amounts of insanity that they no longer seem real to me. Greg and Kai split up over this massage incident briefly, but eventually Onision comes to YouTube and tells them that he and Kai are going to try and get some marriage counselling to fix the problem. Counselling seems to work, Kai and Greg slowly get back together, and then boom, a few months pass and Billy's back on the scene as well. And this time they are a fully fledged three-way relationship.
It's just, again, one of those things where it kind of just happened. Like, we were just hanging out and they like started making out and everything. And Greg like would tell me what to do to like Kai, instead of like kind of letting us do our own thing.
I was becoming emotionally connected to her girlfriend. I stated that I wanted to make love to Lainey while she focused on her girlfriend. To be clear, however, this wasn't the first time I said I wanted that. I had repeatedly spoken to Lainey in the past about wanting to make love to her while she stimulated another woman.
For most of 2016, the three just casually see one another within the confines of this weird three-way hookup relationship, constantly arguing and bickering about each other online during all of this. It's not until 2017 that this shit finally ends and we get a look into how fucked up and weird this relationship is with a video from Billy herself.
I hope you're happy. You completely destroyed all of my pride. You told me to get a tattoo saying I'm a liar, like a tramp stamp. You told me to shave my head. You told me to dye my hair green, shave off my eyebrows, and get an ugly tan. Like, is that not abusive to you? Do you think that's a fair trade for me telling you that I smoked weed? You wanted to chain me up in your basement and then manipulated the situation to tell me I was boring so I would agree to it because you made me feel bad. And then on top of that, you told everyone that you only thought I was really attractive and that's why you stayed with me. Like, so I was just like a plaything. You didn't actually love me.
The period in which this video was released has since become known as Basement Gate, after Billy revealed screenshots of texts from Onision suggesting that she be chained to his basement wall for 3 days, all for the crime of smoking some little weeds. Almost incredulously, and I say almost incredulously because it would be incredulous coming from anyone else, but this is Onision, so it isn't at all. Almost incredulously, Gregory actually defended his basement comments on Twitter at this time. Like, he saw nothing wrong with what he'd suggested here. At this point, I am legally obliged to inform you that there's more. We're not even at the end of this dysfunctional little story yet. And I'd just like to remind you at this point that I'm only covering the bare essentials here. I'm not taking you down every single nook and cranny of all of these relationships, because if I did that, we'd probably end up with something as long as The Lord of the Rings. I'd now like to introduce you to the latest player in the Onision relationship storyline, whose name is Sarah. Now, while Sarah might be the latest player canonically, her contact with Onision, and at first more so Kai, date back to as far as 2013. For reference here, while Sarah doesn't seem to have explicitly said her age at any point, it seems likely that she was spawned somewhere in the year 2000, based off Onision's birth date and the age that she puts Onision in various stories she's told. So she apparently started talking regularly to Kai on Twitter, age 13. By 14, she was in private chats with Kai and potentially Onision as well, and she was definitely speaking to Onision and in a relationship with Kai by the time she was 15 anyway. So get that in perspective. When Sarah first got in contact with Kai, she was 13. Kai was 19 and Onision was 28. When Sarah and Kai got together, they were 15 and 21 respectively, while Onision was the ripe old age of 30. 30? Dude, she's fucking half your age. Now, brace yourself for this one. At 16, Sarah's mother signs legal ownership of Sarah over to Kai.
Yes, I am legally Sarah's guardian right now, currently. Her mother signed guardianship over to me. It has been notarized, and I have legal custody of Sarah right now. She was not in a healthy environment at home, and that's why I decided that I was going to try and help her out.
When I moved in with them for the first time, I was 16, Kai was 22, and Greg was 31.
Of course, when this eventually got out, everyone understandably got either angry, worried, very concerned, or all of the above. And in response to a flurry of, I would say, quite fair criticisms of a 31-year-old dude living with a 16-year-old girl, Greg took to YouTube in a now deleted video called Your Lies End Here, released in 2017. In the video, Onision maintains that Sarah is just a friend of Kai's, and that he and Kai are in a purely platonic relationship with Sarah, nothing more. So essentially, Onision is describing Sarah as a foster daughter. Now at the time, a lot of people obviously doubted this was true, because this is Onision, and you don't trust Onision's fucking word for anything in the world. He doesn't have an ounce of sincerity left in his disfigured vegetarian body. But for the meantime, there's no other side of the story except the one that Onision has given us, so there's no evidence to disprove anything he's claimed. Of course, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, and in January 2019, Sarah's side of the story finally begins to emerge.
We were watching a movie again one night, and like, I look over and I see Greg and Kai like making out, which they'd done in the past, like made out with me on the bed, and I was like, oh, okay, whatever. They're like, I'm gonna watch the movie. And then I looked back and they were like actively having sex. And I was like, so I just decided to like mind my own business and not say anything, just like keep my eyes on the movie. And then Greg kind of pulled me in and told me to start doing stuff.
And throughout 2019, the stories just continue and continue. Sarah starts saying more, it inspires other ex-partners of Onision to come forward and give their stories as well, and all of a sudden, there's a fucking ever-growing mountain of shit against Onision. And all of this eventually culminates in Chris Hansen getting involved. But more on that later. Now, by this point in time, you've probably noticed a pattern. Greg keeps getting older and older and older, but the people he's getting with keep staying the same age. Most of the people he's gotten with have been 17 when the relationship started, while he's been in his mid-20s or early 30s. That's a bit fucking sus on its own, I'm sure you'll agree. But here's the really fucked up icing on top of this cake of shit. Most of the girls he's dated were fans of his YouTube content. Starstruck fans who were lured in by Onision using his YouTube success and fame. Shiloh was a fan of Onision's content and even worked to support the two of them while Onision's channel was getting off the ground in the early 2010s. Kai was a fan as well. That's literally how Kai and Onision met. The only common factor they had when they started talking was that Kai was a fan of Onision's content. And Sarah, who I might remind you was much younger than Onision's average of 17, was also a fan of Onision's content. Do you see the pattern now? Even if you put aside the monumentally fucked up fact that Greg seems to be actively pursuing relationship with teenagers and minors, he's always used his own fame and power to get those relationships with his fans. And then he's used a good dose of emotional abuse to maintain said relationships. He will just manipulate them into doing what he wants. That's what all these relationships, nightmares, whatever you want to call them, all boil down to. I don't think I have to explain to you how or why Onision getting with teenagers is pretty fucked up, especially in his late 20s, early 30s. If I have to explain to you why that's fucked, you're a lost cause. But one thing is for certain, this is a pattern of behaviour by this point. This isn't just a one-off or a mistake. He is absolutely interested in this age range, to the point where he's even tried to hush up what's been going on, implying that even he knows how fucked up this is. Or at the very least, he knows that it's bad for his glorious image. And what's more as well, all of this, when you think about it, correlates with Onision's content as well. The forum videos where he would rate the looks of girls in their mid-teens, the 3 abysmal books he wrote, especially the third one where there's literally a sex scene with a minor written into it. It all adds up. And the accounts from all of his ex-partners are so numerous by this point in time that it couldn't be disproved anyway. But the fact that all these accounts fit in so perfectly with Onision's content and his fucked up YouTube persona as well, it just seals the deal, doesn't it? And the only conclusion I can reach from all this is that this man cannot care properly about other human beings. The only value that other people, his partners, potential collaborators have is how useful they can be to him. His primary and almost sole motivation is himself, his own power and image, his own well-being and safety. And in my opinion, he's the dictionary definition of a terrible person. Now after that last section, I'd like to spend a few brief minutes talking about Kai, because I'm sure some of you will be asking yourselves, well, what about Kai? When you think about it, surely he deserves some of the blame at least for the Billy and Sarah incidents. Now first and foremost, don't get me wrong, Kai is still definitely a victim of Onision here. He was only 17, barely 18, when he met and got married to Onision, for fuck's sake. So what has been done to Kai should not be dismissed or overlooked, not at all. But on the other hand, it's very hard to overlook that Sarah's initial experience with Kai is remarkably similar to Kai's initial experience with Onision.
What did you think was going to happen, Sarah? What did you want to happen in this relationship?
Me, what I wanted to happen was I wanted everyone to be happy. I wanted to be with Kai. I wanted to, even if I wasn't romantically involved with them, I really just wanted to have Kai in my life because I loved Kai so much. I loved him so much. He was like everything to me. He was like my favorite person in the whole world.
Would you have been intimate with Greg if it had not been for that infatuation with Kai?
No. No.
Did Greg use Kai to bring you in order to have a sexual relationship with you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, none of this would have happened without Kai.
Bear in mind, too, that both Billy and Sarah started talking not with Onision first, but with Kai. Kai was able to manipulate both Billy and Sarah into, at the very least, a toxic relationship with himself. And then later down the line, during that relationship, Onision was introduced into the picture. Onision was, of course, likely pressurizing Kai into being in these relationships, but it was still Kai that instigated said relationships. And he was also a part of effectively grooming and manipulating these two ladies into the relationships as well. So who taught Kai how to manipulate so well? Who started him on the whole dating teens thing? Why? It was Onision, of course, but Kai was still doing it. Bear that in mind. There is ample evidence to suggest that Kai was talking to and even dating other young teens who were completely separate and never had any contact with Onision all while the Billy and Sarah incidents were going on. And that's inexcusable. The way I see it, Onision has effectively turned Kai into a little mirror image of himself. Years of emotional abuse and manipulative behaviour have instilled into Kai the same toxic traits and behaviours that Greg has. So while Onision is the root of Kai's terrible behaviour, that doesn't excuse Kai's terrible behaviour. It only explains where it's come from. Kai has still groomed and manipulated teenagers into relationships. Kai, as well as Onision, put Billy and Sarah through hell while they were in those relationships. Kai has become just as bad as Onision and should be held just as accountable. In the same way that Darth Vader is begrudgingly loyal to the Emperor, Kai is still loyal to Onision. They're still both married as far as we can tell. They both participated in these abusive relationships together. They've essentially become twisted little partners in crime. And so while one may have caused the other, not all of that blame can be placed on one person alone. Kai, by this point in time, is probably just as bad as Onision. And there's something a little sad about that, don't you think? Originally, in the early drafts for this video script, I had this section towards the beginning of the video, say section 2 or section 3, but I've since moved it further towards the end, because fuck me, is it more effective back here. Like a little subtle jab in the ribs after a bone-shattering right hook, says the man who hasn't punched anyone in years. So in spite of all I have told you about Onision, both in this video and in the previous two, in spite of all that he has said and done, both in his content and to his partners, in spite of years of inhuman and unforgivable behaviour, Onision still thinks he's in the right. That's probably the most sickening bit of all, to be honest. Onision's chronic narcissism, which needs no introduction at this point, combined with his very insecure obsession of being liked and maintaining a good image, have cocooned dear little Gregory into a little bubble of self-delusion. And inside this little pocket dimension of egotistical insanity, the narrative runs a little differently. In here, it's actually Gregory that's the victim. He's never done anything wrong. He's always been in the right. It's all these haters and ex-girlfriends and YouTubers and lawyers that are out to get him, and he's actually just an underdog. He's the cool, hip and edgy outsider that's going to lead all the other deranged emos into the promised land and rise above all those haters on Twitter. And this is honestly the hardest bit to get your head around, because when you think about it, it really is fucked, but Onision genuinely believes that he's done no wrong. Or at the very least, he believes he's done nothing majorly wrong. Think about it. He rarely apologises, and even when he does, it's not for the big controversial stuff, it's just for minor shit. And all of his apologies, regardless, they always just turn out really backhanded. Either that, or he just fucking redacts his apology in a later video. It's just fucking mind-numbing. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why for years he has continued to beg for your money and your attention and your sympathy, because he genuinely believes that he deserves those things. YouTube didn't blacklist and demonetize his channels because he's done a lot of seriously fucked up things over the years. No, it's because they're silencing him and they're out to get him. And so he turns to Patreon, because he genuinely still believes in his warped little skull that he deserves your money after everything he's fucking done.
Overdid spring break and blew through all my extra spending funds till mid-April. I'll be back later. I have a few questions. 1, what kind of things did you snort up your nose on spring break? 2, you were giving me $2 a month, so I ask you, what kind of budget is detrimentally affected by $2?
Out you go to your grueling 9-to-5 job that pays a shitty minimum wage, and you do all the hard work, but at the end of your hard day, doing a horrible job, Gregory believes that he deserves some of your paycheck to fund his low-quality, low-effort, shitty YouTube videos.
So if you guys want to help me make more videos and help pay for these really necessary things, like the set that I record at, and my mode of transportation to get to the sets, and my house that I need for, you know, things I can't talk about because it's private life and that's sacred.
Or even just to pay for his fucking food, and his bills, because apparently you're supposed to finance those instead of him going out and getting a job himself. And you cannot convince him otherwise. There is no way in the conceivable universe of convincing Greg out of this underdog narrative he's got going on in his mind. As an example of this, let me take you back to when Onision's first book, Stones to Abigail, was released. Now at the time, some fans of Onision approached him and offered to edit the entire book for him for free. They didn't want anything for it. No money, no shout out, not even a thanks in the DMs. They just wanted to help one of their favourite YouTubers and see him do well with his first book. Onision didn't just decline this offer, he then gave them shit for daring to even think of tampering with his glorious masterpiece. And as someone who has read the fucking book, I can tell you right now, far from a fucking masterpiece, more like a fucking dumpster fire. Actually, I take that back as well, that's just insulting to dumpster fires. It's literally got basic spelling and grammar mistakes in it, so maybe you should have taken that editing offer, Gregory dear? But you see my point, that's the level of self-righteous we're dealing with here. I bring this up because it explains why Gregory, for so many years, has continued to be so controversial, so manipulative, and so scummy in his behaviour, and why he's continued for years to apparently deliberately make the same mistakes over and over and over again. It's because Onision doesn't think they're mistakes. And so if he's convinced that everything he's doing is right, well, he's just going to keep doing it then, isn't he? Any punishment or reprimand he gets, he automatically thinks it's unjustified. Any criticism he gets, he automatically labels it as just shit from haters. And then he'll probably just, you know, milk it for attention and views on the fucking internet. And that, in my mind, is one of the most enraging and one of the most sinister things about Onision. You will never, ever, ever be able to convince him that all the things he's done are wrong. He will never believe you. No matter how much wrong he does, no matter how severely he's held accountable, he will never, ever believe that he's actually done wrong. You can convince anyone on the planet that Onision is a terrible person, except Onision himself. By this point in the video, and after everything we've just sat through, you might be rightly, and perhaps a little miserably, wondering to yourself, how the fuck is Onision still going? Doing all this shit for so many years, how has he not been stopped and dealt with yet? And it's a fair question, because while Onision has been reprimanded somewhat in the last few years, it's still nowhere near what, in my opinion, he completely deserves. Onision has been doing this shit for years, and getting away with it for years. He knows what he's doing by this point in time. Most of the things he's done, while they're definitely morally wrong, they can be legally loopholed, and he's probably intimately familiar with these legal loopholes by this point in time. Granted, as more and more evidence begins to build up against Onision, these legal loopholes and playing shit off on technicality, they will get harder and harder to play. But up until the late 2010s, certainly, it worked fucking fine. Onision was pulling shit left, right and centre, and he was getting off with barely a slap on the wrist. Thankfully though, from what I've seen, this getting off scot-free shit finally seems to be wearing off. And this is again mainly due to the ever-growing, ever-mounting pile of awful shit he's done. So you've only got yourself to blame, dear Gregory boy. From as early as 2017, Onision was posting videos where he stated he was convinced that YouTube was blacklisting his channel, in the same way that Leafy was his channel was blacklisted as well.
I finally felt recognized by YouTube. I finally felt a little bit famous, and I don't know, it was so inspiring. And then one day, boom, it was gone. I was no longer showing up on trending or anything.
In 2018, Onision uploaded a video of him chopping down a load of trees in his back garden. However, the trees he was cutting down were actually protected wildlife under the law of the state he was living in, Washington.
A while back, my neighbor said that I should do some bulldozing in my backyard to remove the nettles, the devil's club, the blackberry bushes, things that could hurt children and adults alike, and things that were just basically a pest.
And so following a court case which he lost, also in 2018, Onision was forced to pay the fine for the trees. Just under a year later, in November 2019, Onision's Patreon was shut down. He'd been shilling this Patreon page unapologetically from the second he suspected that his YouTube channels were getting blacklisted. So this was a pretty heavy fucking blow to Onision. Does anyone remember those Onision breakdown videos that surfaced around the internet a few years ago? Yeah, losing his Patreon is what caused those videos.
Wow. 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 So you guys are so into yourselves, like you are so committed to censoring innocent people. Oh, well, our opinions have been invalidated so many times of him that we're gonna disable his Patreon. Wow. Wow, you would really do that. You would really do that!
Wow, what a nice fella.
What am I gonna do?
It's around this time too, in late 2019, that Chris Hansen starts taking an interest in Dear Onion Boy. He starts looking into the shit he's done, he starts interviewing Onision's ex-partners such as Sarah, Billy and Shiloh, and even shows up on Onision's doorstep in January 2020.
Hi, there's a person who's been stalking me online and they just showed up to my house.
Okay, and they're outside now?
Yes, they're knocking on my door.
And the one that's knocking on your door, is he the main one that you said has been stalking you?
Yes, he's a stalker. He's yelling things at me through the door right now.
Okay, and do we know his name at all?
It's Chris Hansen.
Ultimately, I think by this point in time, a lot of people believe that Chris Hansen's involvement in the Onision case was a failure. Hansen kept promising things such as just desserts for Gregory and therapy and justice for his ex-partners, and all of these things never actually really happened. Arguably, Hansen showing up on Greg's doorstep was nothing more than a viral fucking stunt. So gradually, following this, and following how little of Hansen's promises seemed to be coming to fruition, support for the man began to gradually peter off. I suppose, at the very least, the whole Hansen incident managed to document more evidence against Greg with the interviews that Hansen did with Onision's ex-partners, but other than that, it hasn't really done much. Regardless of how effective Hansen's involvement was, though, it certainly put the fear of God into Gregory, as it was Hansen's involvement that inspired Gregory to purge all of his old forum pages and likely all of his YouTube channels too. Following the doorstep stunt in late January 2020, Onision tries to take both Chris Hansen and YouTuber Repsion to court. Repsion is a brilliant YouTuber who has been creating amazing and very detailed videos about all that Onision has done for over a decade now. I'd highly recommend his channel if you haven't seen it already. Of course though, Gregory cannot take any criticism in any shape or form, so he claimed that both Chris Hansen and Repsion were cyber-stalking him. He actually did manage to get a court case. However, on the very same day that the court proceedings began, Onision himself threw the case out.
This is the first time I've ever been in the same room or even vicinity of Onision. Ever. Ever, 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 ever. He took me to court. Last week, I think it was January 14th, I was served some paperwork that said Onision and Kai Jackson, his husband, are filing a anti-harassment order against me, which was shocking because all I do is I just talk about things that they do publicly online. Like why you would go through the effort of filing a protective order against somebody who's never been around you, who's never been at your house, you dismiss it yourself, doesn't really make a lot of sense. So this is him and me in the courtroom right now. You can see me standing next to my attorney. You can see him in his tennis shoes. It looks like, from what it looks like, he was wearing a bulletproof vest.
Why did he do this, I hear you ask? Well, perhaps it's because he realised that everything he was doing was baseless and pointless and just a waste of the court's time. Or perhaps it was when he realised that he'd served up papers to the wrong Chris Hansen. I'm dead serious. He claimed that a man was cyber-stalking him and then proceeded to take the wrong man to court. It was just some other bloke who happened to be called Chris Hansen. It wasn't Chris Hansen from the TV at all. How monumentally stupid do you have to be to decide to sue Chris Hansen, who's a well-known celebrity, and then serve up the papers to a completely random person who happens to have the same name? You couldn't make this shit up. It's just fucking brilliant. And finally, the most recent bitch slap of relevance that Onision has gotten: his channels have been demonetized. All of his still running channels were completely demonetized in January of 2021, and I suspect any new channels he tries to make will suffer the same fate. Upon hearing that he couldn't get any money from YouTube anymore, he announced that he'd be leaving both YouTube and Twitter for good. And I say, good riddance, you asshole. And to be honest, Onision has fallen pretty quiet on YouTube for the time being at least. Whether he'll stay that way or not can never be predicted when you're dealing with someone this erratic and this insane, but for the meantime anyway at least, the lack of money seems to completely have put Onision off making YouTube content. His Twitter's pretty fucking dead as well. He still posts semi-regularly, don't get me wrong, but the only thing he ever posts now is promotional stuff for his OnlyFans. By the way, when I went to check what Onision had been doing on Twitter recently, I found out he'd blocked me. And honestly, it made my fucking day. I'm so pleased. This is like a real life Xbox achievement. I'm honestly so fucking proud of myself. I've fucking done it. Anyway, did I mention an OnlyFans? Oh yes, Onision's got one. And if you fancy seeing pictures of his awful asshole, you can pay probably an exorbitant amount. I haven't even gone near his OnlyFans, to be fucking honest. I only know that it exists. I've been through far too much shit for this video already. I don't need nudes of Onision on top of that already, alright? Give me a fucking break. I don't know what he puts there. I don't know how frequently he puts it there. All I know is that this is basically a replacement for his Patreon page, which got shut down a couple of years ago. Other than OnlyFans, he's still also got a private Discord server, which he's explicitly labelled as 18+. Gee, I wonder why you've done that, Gregory dear. He's also got some new Onision forums, but they're pretty fucking inactive too. It's not totally dead, but all the discussions are few and far between, and between an ever-dwindling group of supporters, most of which are probably either too young and oblivious to understand the shit this man has done, or are just as fucked up as Onision themselves. He still miraculously has a Twitch page. It was originally banned in January 2021, around the same time that YouTube demonetized him, but it was then quietly reinstated in October 2021. Thankfully though, after he lost his Twitch partnership, his Twitch page seems pretty dead too, and it seems unlikely that he'll be returning to that anytime soon either. Slowly but surely, Onision's actions have caught up with him, and have almost completely ostracized him from the internet. So there is somewhat of a silver lining in all of these dark clouds. Onision is still around, still making some forms of content, and still far from getting his full just desserts in my opinion. But he hasn't gone unscathed, and his years and years of terrible behaviour have turned a vast majority of people well and truly against him at this point. He's losing his fans and his social media pages slowly but surely, and once he loses them, he'll lose his fame, his money, and his relevance as well. And once he's lost those things, he will well and truly be finished, because that's all Onision cares about: fame, money, and relevance to fuel his ego. Once they're gone, he will have nothing to hide behind anymore, and he will have no reason to keep trying to cling to his ever-fading internet popularity that went out of date about a decade ago. And by the looks of things, all those things that he's trying so desperately to cling to, they've already got a foot in the door, and they're getting ready to leave. At last. It's done. Finally. I've finished my contract for the Royal Stock Image courtroom. It's all done. I'm free.
Hey Dumbus. Are you finally done whining at the camera? I've been trying to get your attention for hours now.
Tyrone, what is it? What do you want? I've just finished the contract for the Royal Stock Image courtroom. It's taken 2.5 years to do this. Could you not even give me a break for 5 minutes?
You shut your balding ass up and listen to me. Onision has escaped the Royal Stock Image courtroom and is on his way here right now. This dude means business, Moocake. We do not have much time.
Wait. What? He's coming here? Oh my god. Oh my god, we're fucked.
Did I say I was done speaking yet? Shut up, loser. While you've been ranting at that camera, I've been coming up with a plan. Now, listen up. This is what we are going to do.
Where the fuck is he? Dead end. Shit. Oh. Oh no. Oh, please God, no. So then, you finally caught up with me.
I have finally tracked you down, Moocake, for what you've done to me and my brand.
Do you have to speak like that? Seriously?
Silence. You will rue the day you ever set paths against me, Mother Moocake. Despite all you have done and how clever you claim to be, I have found you! And I've cornered you. Like an insect.
Actually, I'm pretty sure... I don't think I've ever claimed to be particularly clever. I'm pretty sure I call myself a fucking dumbass in pretty much every YouTube...
Be silent, you worm! You will not be so cocky when you feel the full wrath of Onision!
Yeah? Well, let me tell you something. Chum, coming here, tracking me down, and cornering me here, that was your second mistake, motherfucker.
My second?
Yeah, your second.
No! You're lying! I could not make a mistake. I am Onision. I am the definition of perfection. I am better than anyone in—
Hey bitch boy. Guess Moocake lured you here then. He's not totally useless after all.
Who the fuck is this?
I'm the sexy little dinosaur who's going to stop you for good. If the Royal Stock Image courtroom can't handle it, then they leave me no choice.
You think you can destroy me? Are you deluded? I will crush you easily, you small reptile.
You're right. You're probably too strong even for me to destroy. But I possess the powers of the nether dimensions, and I call upon them to banish you there now.
I cannot be wrong. I am Onision. I am never wrong. You must be wrong.
You have a point. You're so narcissistic it protects you even from my powers. But there's one thing we can both agree that I'm right about.
And what would that be?
That I'm way fucking sexier than you, punk. Just look at these thighs. You have nothing on me, loser.
You're right. No, this cannot be.
It is, bitch. I'm right. And so I have power over you. Get banished, motherfucker.
Please stop. No, it burns. Just stop. Why does it tick? Oh, God. Tyrone, no, please, no.
Ladies, I know what you're thinking. Can this T-Rex get any sexier? Well, how about I buy you a drink sometime and you find out.
Well done today, Tyrone. You did really good. Fair play to you. You know, as a reward for doing so well, you don't have to sleep on the floor tonight. You can have the top bunk, but you can't have the bottom bunk. Bottom bunk is fucking mine. Everyone knows that the cool kids sleep on the bottom bunk. So, you reached the end of the video, did you? Well done. Aren't you a trooper, champ? I'd like to take a few minutes at the end of this video to thank a few people that really helped me out with this. First and foremost, I'd like to thank VIII. He's a very good friend of mine whom I do a podcast with, and he helped me with a lot of voice work in this video. Guess whose voice he was doing?
Those real coughs.
VIII's YouTube channel will be linked down below. He's excellent and he's a very funny motherfucker. I thoroughly recommend you check him out. I'd also recommend checking out the podcast I do with him. Granted, it's a very infrequent podcast. We have the upload schedule of a dying horse, but it's very good all the same. You should definitely give it a look. Secondly, in a weird turn of events, I would like to thank the band Ghost for releasing this absolute monster of an album while I was making this video. This isn't a paid promotion, by the way. This isn't a sponsorship. I'm just being genuine. As I was working on this video, you know, finishing up the script and beginning to start the recording and editing, they dropped the first song of this album, and slowly over the next couple of months they released bits and bobs to it, and honestly, it was a real fucking help getting through all of this Onision stuff. Thoroughly good, Final Stand-esque rock and roll music. The perfect kind of soundtrack to trawl through all this shit to. Basically, what I'm saying is, without this album, I don't think I'd have reached the deadline for this video, so give it a listen. Very fucking good album. Tracks 4, 5, 6, 9, 10 and 12 in particular were my favourites. I'd also like to thank fucking me, because I did everything else. I'd like to thank my arms for always being by my side. I'd like to thank my legs for always holding me up. And I'd like to thank my fingers because I could always count on them. And finally, last and certainly not least, I'd like to thank all of you at home for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I greatly appreciate you sticking all the way through to the end. This video has genuinely taken me a very fucking long time, and I'm very proud of it, so any support you can throw it and me is tremendously appreciated. Thank you in advance. If you enjoyed this video, remember this is the third video I've done on Onision. I've got a whole trilogy of Onision's Crimes Against videos, and they are now all together in a nice little playlist on my channel. I'll link it in the description if you're interested. Well, that was quite a long and arduous journey, wasn't it? That was pretty fucking difficult in some places. Here, let's finish up on a fun little positive note, shall we? I'll tell you a few jokes. What do you call a lesbian dinosaur? Lickalotopus. What's white and 12 inches long? Nothing. What's worse than stepping in dog shit? Onision. What do NFTs and laxatives have in common? They both irritate the shit out of me. What's red and bad for your teeth? A brick.